So let's discuss the known and the unknown from the Israeli and American perspective. Retired NATO Supreme Allied Commander General Philip Breedlove and former Israeli National Security Advisor Eyal Hulata. Eyal, thank you so much for being on with me the other night when we were unfolding this in real time. General, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for helping me out tonight. Mr. Hulata, is it true what I am hearing from sources within the IDF and in Israeli media, that it's not that Israel needs America involved militarily, that Israel believes it can do this themselves? Is that true?
Well, happy to be here again, Chris. Look, when Israel decided to go on the attack on June 12th, the rational thing, and I'm sure that Prime Minister Netanyahu has viewed this, we couldn't have just done this and then believing that the Americans will join and that President Trump will make a decision to do this. This was not a joint strike. This was an Israeli strike. It got the approval, I would assume, of President Trump, because if President Trump wouldn't want Israel to attack on June 12th, this wouldn't have happened. But Israel was not coordinating this as a joint attack. The Americans will decide on whether or not they join this based on national security interests of the Americans. And Israel, when we embarked on this, we were able to do significant damage to the Iranian nuclear program. We were able to do significant damage to the weaponization program. When you spoke about that there is no consensus about the understanding of what's going to happen, it is specifically on whether or not Iran has decided to start operating its weaponization program toward the bomb, not just the enrichment component of it. And Israel has our way of dealing with this. When we had the belief or believe that there is a risk that they were moving ahead. And in fact, I think that the Supreme Leader has green-lighted it to eliminate the top scientists so they won't be able to reach a nuclear bomb. But in any case, when we decided to do this, we must have understood that maybe the Americans will join, maybe the Americans will not join. Israel has done a lot of damage. Israel can do more damage. And I think that in the end of it, the question is, how will this end and when? What will happen after the attack ends? And whether or not the Americans join or not is an American decision. I hope the decision is made soon from an Israeli perspective, because 2 weeks now is very, very long by way of the damage that Iran is doing to Israel. You mentioned the hospital. You know, the amount of targets that they can hit in 2 weeks is just immense.
Understood. And look, it is no secret that I have been an open advocate for Israel's right to defend itself, and that has not changed. But, General, just because it's urgent for Israel, that was their determination to go in. That cannot be the sole criterion for whether or not America goes in. And what do you make of this division in whether or not there is an imminency within the intelligence group? What does that tell you?
Well, Chris, thanks again for having me on. And you prefaced this well in your monologue in opening. We don't know, at least in the open press, what the guiding factors to this 2 weeks are. And as you noted, there's a fairly wide divide in our own intelligence agencies. And so the president is taking that aboard with a certain amount of caution and preserving an opportunity to try to get to a peaceful solution here. We would all love that. But what we also want to make sure that Iran understands is that Israel is going to continue to do damage not only to the program, but they're doing some excellent work at degrading other capabilities of the Iranian military, which should also be noted. But we in the United States could bring a very special set of tools to this problem, and that's what we're really here to talk about.
So, General, do you believe what I'm about to say? And if you do, help us understand it. The reporting I have is that there is a debate going on within the administration that if a ground operation is necessary to determine whether or not the bunker busters were effective. If you're going to have to go in on the ground, then why go and have bombing at all? Just have Israel go in on the ground as they plan to do and have them destroy it, because America can't know whether or not it was worth the risk of doing the bombing without the ground component. So you might as well not bomb and just have the ground component. Do you believe that that could be an issue of debate, as is reported to me. And what do you make of that?
Well, I follow everything you said, Chris. One of the big concerns I have, the Israeli military is amazing. They have great capabilities. But here we are debating an open press about a ground incursion by Israel. There's not going to be any surprise, no strategic advantage, because we're out here talking about it. And what we would really want to see is not that, but Israel to be able to do what they've done so well in the past and use strategic surprise and other things. So even the great Israeli military forces, when the entire world is watching and preparing, it's going to be really hard to pull off a ground incursion. I believe they have capability to do this, but there's no more surprise or nobody's confused about what might be on the way. And that will make it very hard for this great force to do what you have talked about.
Now, General, you make a very salient point, but you are not looking at the look on Hulata's face when you say it. You understand the IDF even and much more deeply and profoundly than I do, but I know the IDF well enough to know that Mr. Hulata's face is betraying a confidence that they have been planning for what to do for those who want to kill them for years, and plans upon plans and mechanisms. So, Mr. Hulata, you hear the general saying, well, now everybody knows what you're going to do, and you smile. Why?
Well, first I smile because I couldn't have said it better myself, Chris, and thank you, General, for doing this. I mean, you know, Israel's actions are being debated over the media over and over again. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of leakage into the press from the Israeli side as well, right? This is not just about leaks happening on this side of the Atlantic. But I'm not going to refer to whether or not Israel can, should, and would do a ground invasion in Iran. I will leave it elsewhere. Israel has done most of what we were able to do in Iran on June 12th because of an element of surprise. Because we were able that night to attack simultaneously the nuclear scientists of the weaponization program, the leaders of the RGC, to attack only them in their homes without collateral damage, because we were able to do this under surprise. So, you know, I think it is, as General said, there are things that are better left outside of the discussion. You're right that we've prepared for this for many, many years, and we have capabilities. And I think what it means is, at the end, Israel will need to do what we can do the best ourselves. I'm not betting on President Trump joining in. You know, of course, I would like to see the Fordo site destroyed by MOPs. The first time I've seen videos of how those MOPs will operate was back in 2012 in briefings I got from CENTCOM when I was still in Mossad. So, you know, you've been developing this for a long period of time, and this is for your decision to do. At the end of things, I'm confident Israel will do the maximum damage we can to the Fordo facility. It will never be as good as with the MOPs, but I think it will be substantial, and we've degraded other parts of it. And the question at the end will be, what will happen in the day after? Because if you may, Chris, even if Fordo is destroyed, as I believe it should be, Iran will still have stockpiles of 90% enriched uranium stashed in Isfahan and elsewhere, and 60% and 20%, and advanced R6 centrifuges in quantities and numbers that if they decide to enrich 90% uranium, they could do it just as much. This is why the weaponization program was so important. This is why the emphasis, and I hope that President Trump will continue to hold the line of this, that in any arrangement with the Iranians later, Iran will need to dismantle its program, to give away all of its stockpile, to shut down all of its enrichment facilities for there to be any long-lasting agreement. This is the focus I'm hoping that President Trump will put. If these 2 weeks will be devoted to bring the Iranians into a serious negotiation, not like they want it, but the way that President Trump thinks that it should end, I will be very, very satisfied.
Well, General, not to make light of the situation, but asking Iran to keep its word about what it does with trying to get a nuclear weapon is like trying to ask me to promise not to eat cookies when all I do is buy cookies and I hide cookies all over my house and I have every intention of eating the cookies. That's the situation that we are in, but it's life and death, not just cookies and a big belly. General Breedlove, thank you very much for your perspective. Mr. Hulata, you're always welcome here to make the case. Thank you. Appreciate you both.